Now our next topic is methods. So in this topic we'll be learning about these things. I'll explain what are methods, then how to write methods we will learn, then parameter passing, then return type of a method, means what all the values it can return. Then we will see method overloading, this is an important one. Then variable arguments, that is in short it is called as var arg, that is variable arguments. Now let us understand what are methods. See, methods are the members of classes which provides functionality for the class. So we have not yet started classes and objects, but we have seen a class called string. If you remember, inside the string class, after creating the object of a string class, I was calling the methods. That the methods for finding a length of a string, there was a method, we can find the length. We can find a substring of a string. We can find a index of a given character, index of, there was a method to check whether the strings are equals or not. So there were so many methods, we have already studied this. These are all methods. These are called as method. They have the functionality. Like for finding the index of a character, you have to search for a character in a string, then you can get its index. So for searching, that is nothing but a mechanism or the functionality or a procedure for finding a index of a character. So those procedures or functionalities are present inside these methods. So like this we can write our own methods in our own classes. But this idea of methods originate from the beginning of the programming languages, beginning of computer sciences. So I'll briefly give you the idea about that one. See, initially with the beginning of programming, the program was written as a single piece, single module. So everything was there in a single program. All the instructions, the complete program code will be a single piece. So that was called as monolithic programming. So it was very difficult to develop a big size. If the program is becoming very big, it was difficult to manage. So instead of that, we can break the program into pieces and we can develop it. So the idea of breaking the program into modules was introduced. So these modules are nothing but procedures or subroutines or functions. So different programming languages were there which have supported this type of programming style, that is dividing a program into modules. Like this, the main module, and the rest of them are smaller modules which are used by this main module. If you combine all this together, it becomes a single program. This was there in C language or the languages before C language. Functions or the procedures were there. Then next, when the object-oriented programming was introduced, till that time, people started developing very huge size softwares, very big size of softwares, writing millions of lines of code. So that was not easy for managing. So the complexity of a particular task was enclosed inside the classes. So instead of having modules, we started having classes. So we have to study this object-oriented concept. So that time we will understand exactly what these things are. Just I'm giving you the brief idea. So inside a class we will have the data and all the functions that perform operations on the data. So these functions are called as methods. So if you see the same thing in C, C++ programming, these are called as functions. But here we call them as method because this is not modular programming, this is object-oriented programming. So function is not a right term for object-oriented programming. So the correct perfect term is method. So it's the same thing, we write function only, but we call it as method. So this is the brief about methods, when they have started and what is their role in object orientation. Now let us see how to write down method. I'll write down some example methods and I will show you. See, here is the skeleton of a method. How it should be written. See, this is the method name, the name of a method you want. And this is the parameter list, the input taken by a method. So if you want this method to take some values, then you can mention them here. Then this is the return type of a method. After performing operations on the data and getting some result, a method can return the result. That is the return type. And these are the flower bracket that are showing the body of method. So what all the things that you want to do inside the method, you can write them here. So this is the implementation of a method or body of a method. Then this first line is called as signature of a method. or we can also call it as header of a method. If you go back to C++ programming, it is called as prototype of a method. So here it is called as signature or heading or header of a method. So this is the implementation body. So for example, I will take a method for finding maximum of two numbers and I will show you. Name of a method is max. In short, I will call it as max. Now finding maximum of two numbers, so method should take two numbers. So let us pass two parameters, integer x and integer y. So it will take two parameters. See, deciding the name and the parameters, that all depends on you, right? So that's how we will be learning when we will be writing the code. So slowly we'll learn these things, what should be the name and what should the parameter for any method. So it depends on the situation. Now next thing is, what is the return type? After finding the maximum of these two numbers, it should return a maximum one. So maximum value it should return. So what is the type of the value? These are integers, so that will also be integer, yes. So return type is integer. Then write the body. Then what I should do inside this one? So we have already seen how to check which number is greater. So here I will write on the logic, if x is greater than y, then return x is greater. So return. See, whatever the value a method is returning, it should be returned by using a return statement. So whatever the value of x is, that will be returned by this method. If x is greater, return x, else return y. That's all. So this is the method. It will take two values and check which is greater, and it will return that particular value. If x is greater, it will return that, otherwise y. Means even if they are equal also, it will return y. It can send anything when they are equal, so it will return y. Now I will use this method and write it as a program and show you. So here I have written a complete Java program. We know that a Java program should be written inside a class. So this is a class test, and this is the main method. This is the main method, and you know the signature of main method: public static void main string arguments, and that is array of arguments. Then inside this already I have three variables a, b, c, and a is having value 10, b is having value 15, then c is also there. Now I want to find out which of these two values is greater, and I want the result inside c. So how I can do that? So for that already I have written a max method here for finding maximum, right? The same method I have it here. Now I want to call that method. So from here I will call the method max by passing a and b, and the result I want to take it in c. That's it. But when I call this method, it will not be called. I'll get an error. Reason: the method from which I am calling is main method. I am calling this max from inside main method, and that main method is static. So a main method is static. It can call only those methods which are static. So max, there is nothing written like here static, so it cannot be called. I get an error. So for calling this method, I should make it as static because I am calling it from main method. So I should call it as static. I will make it as static. Now it can be called. Now it works perfect. Though there are other methods also for calling the same method, I will show you after some time. Now we have made it as static and we are calling this one. Now the result of this method, whatever the value returns, see, suppose 10 and 15 goes here. So the greater value is 15, so it will return 15. That this line becomes 15. So it looks like this almost, C assign 15. So it means the method, when it returns any value, the method itself will take that value. So C assign 15 it becomes. Now if I have to print this value, I can say system.out.println C, so the value 15 will be printed. So that's it. This is the simplest example. I have given one example for method. So we'll be using these methods. We'll be writing lots of examples slowly. So this is the introduction of method. Now how to write a method and how to call it, I have shown you. So this is the definition of a method. This is the call of a method, calling a method, method call. So main is calling that method. Now next thing is parameter passing. Let us understand this. In the same example, I'll explain you parameter passing. See, this is the main method. It is having three members, that is variables, A, B, C, three variables are there. A, B, C. All these are integer types. So 4 bytes, 4 bytes, 4 bytes. So total 6 bytes of memory is taken by these three variables of main method. And the values in these variables are 10 and 15. Now next is main is calling this max. So once the max is called, it is having two variables. Its variable is x, integer type 4 bytes, y, integer type 4 bytes. Now when this is called, the value of a is copied in corresponding variable, that is x, and b is copied in y. So this 10 is copied here and 15 is copied here. So when a method is called, the parameters are copied, respective parameters are copied, and a method will have its own copy of variable, right? This is having its own variable and this is also having its own variable. Now one important thing. If suppose inside this method somewhere if I make x plus plus, means I am modifying the value. Who will modify? This will modify or this will modify? This will modify. This will become 11. But the original value that we have passed from here, it remains as it is. So this is to prove that this main method is having its own variable and the max method is having its own variables, separate variable, and from here only copy is sent, the value is sent, right? So if any changes are done to that copy, it will not affect here the actual variables of this main method. It will not affect. So this is just to show that only the value is copied. So this is how parameter pass, basically this is how parameters are passed in Java. The value of the parameters are passed. So we can call this as actual parameters. We can call them as actual parameters, and this we can call it as formal parameters. Alright. So I can now say that when a method is called, the values of actual parameters will be copied inside formal parameters. And this formal parameters will have just copy, and if any modifications are done to formal parameter, that will not affect here inside actual parameters. So this is how the parameters are passed. Now next thing in parameters is, see, if you are sending any object, then they are handled in a different way in Java. So I will show you that if object is sent, then how it works. But remember that there is only one way. The value inside the actual parameters is copied in formal parameter. This is the only method. This is the only parameter passing method in Java. But when we pass object, it's different. So let us look at the example for object.